So Nate and I started by when we were getting married. Nate was moving in with me, and he had this condo downtown. And it was, he owned it free and clear. His parents gifted most of it to him. And he wanted to Airbnb this. This was 8 years ago. And I was like, Airbnb? Like, I think I heard of that. And the only thing I could think of was like all of the worst possible things that you could think of. And I told him every worst possible thing. I said, people are going to trash it. They're going to steal all the stuff. It'll be, just, it's not worth it. Let's just do a long-term tenant in there that's safe. We don't have to furnish it. We'll get a steady paycheck every month on it. It'll be nice. And he's like,
you're talking to me.
He's like, I really want to try it. Just let me try it. And I was like, okay, fine. Waste a few months of our life. Try it. And then we'll go back to a long-term rent. Well, he rented it. He Airbnb'd it. Did phenomenal. He made about 3 times what we would have made on a monthly rent. And I was like, okay, I could see this working for you. He was cleaning the condo.
For you, like it's his project. Like,
That's his. Yeah. That's all of, that's his house. That's his condo. He was cleaning it in between guests. Like that was his job. And then he stayed home with our daughter when she was born. And so he would bring her, tote her to the condo, and he would clean the condo with her as a baby. And I would go to work, and that was our life. And that was his way of contributing to our family while he was watching the baby. So I got this idea of like, okay, how can we duplicate this? How can we make how can we scale it? And so being a lender, I was like, you own this free and clear. Let's do a cash out refinance. The condo needed a little bit of work.
Let's gamble a little bit on the money that we made off of it.
Yeah. Well, and I think at the time the appraisal was like $100,000. It was a tiny little studio condo in downtown Austin. And this was like back in 2015. So we did a cash out refinance. We had about $100,000 from that. And we only may be able to use like $75,000. So we updated this little tiny condo. And then we bought a condo 2 doors down, and we renovated that, furnished it, and Airbnb'd that. So with the cash out refinance, we were able to renovate that one, make it nicer, keep it as an Airbnb, and then buy one 2 doors down, and did the same thing. And so now we have 2 functioning Airbnbs.
Replica of it.
Yes. And then we got to a point after another year or 2. Now we have 2 kids. Nate's toting them both to the condos and cleaning them, and it was miserable for him. But we still wanted to scale. And so there were no other condos that we could get that would sell to us. But there was a guy in between our 2 units that was willing to rent to us. So we rented that unit and we Airbnb'd it. And so we had 3 units next to each other. And the one we rented is called rental arbitrage. So we rent it and then we re-rent it on Airbnb. And it's like landlords are super hesitant to, they were like me. Like most landlords are like, no, I'm not going to let you Airbnb my property. It's going to get trashed. It's going to, all of these things. And Nate's tactic to talk to the landlord about it was like, look, I run a successful Airbnb. I have a lot of amazing reviews. I have to have this condo look like the pictures every time I turn it over. So it's not like you're going to get a tenant in there that is going to trash the place and you're never going to know about it until they move out. Like this is going to look picture worthy and you'll know immediately if there's any leaks or anything wrong with the unit. Mm-hmm. And so that sold the guy and he was like, okay, I'll let you Airbnb it. So we paid him a little bit higher on the rent just so that he could.
Everybody wins.
Yeah, everyone wins. Exactly. And so that one did really well for us. And then we got to a point where we were like, okay, we've got these 3 condos and our kids hate going there. Nate hates cleaning them. So how can we maybe buy something that would benefit our whole family? So we sold the condos in COVID, like 2020, used that money and went and bought a beach house. We bought a beach house very close to the water. We got a good deal because it was the middle of COVID and no one could qualify. People were losing their jobs. People weren't able, it wasn't a stable time to buy things. So we got a good deal on a beach house. We renovated it. We Airbnb'd it. And now that unit makes more than all 3 of our condos did together. And then some. So it was like maybe getting 5 condos versus what we had.
That's awesome.
So every time we get a chance, we've cash out refinanced that beach house a couple times, and we use that money and we go buy another property. And so we've done this about 9 times so far, where we have bought a house, done a cash out refi, fixed it up, bought another property. And that's our story. And so I feel like if someone could just start small, and not everyone's going to have a condo that's paid off free and clear that they were gifted from their parents. So I get that. But you can start with just a little bit of equity. Doing a cash out refinance on your home maybe will push you over the edge to where you have enough money to go buy an investment property, fix it up, Airbnb it, or flip it.
So here's my question.
Okay.
With the COVID-19 home, COVID-19 rates, would you do a cash out refi?
Yeah.
On a 2.7, 2.3?
It was hard to give it up, but I did. We gave it up because we knew that the money that we could make on that by giving up our 2.7, I think we're at like, I don't know what interest rate we're at. Maybe 5.875 right now or something like that. But which is still better than what today's market is. But we were like willing to give that 3% up to get to 6% because we were making way more than capital. 6%
you
on
were
our
limiting
money.
Yourself.
Yeah. And so not only are we making rental income monthly, but we're making money on the equity by just owning the home. So we have Airbnb people basically they're paying our mortgage. They're paying money for us, our passive supplemental income. And then we're gaining equity growth in the property. So we're getting all of these different forms of wealth by just owning this investment property.
Confession.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm one of those people and it's because we talk to so many clients, right, that are on the fence on wanting to sell. Mm-hmm. But when it's you on the other side too, when I'm having those conversations, I immediately back out of the conversation because I'm like, I don't want to let go of my 2.7.
Yeah.
I don't want to. But at the same time, I'm like.
Yeah, you can't look at it from an emotional standpoint. You have to look at it from a business standpoint.
Right. And so that's where I stopped and I thought about another market. I was like, well, if I let go of this 2.7, it better be for a damn good reason. Like, it better be for a good reason. And so Matthew Lehman, he's a real estate agent. I was telling you the other day about him, that he has those properties out in Mexico, and it's like the same price. It's the same thing, but it's producing so much more equity. I mean, more cash flow than what mine is on its month-to-month lease.
Right.
So that's where I feel like my brain's starting to run a little bit further than the rate.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I agree. If you can take advantage of the opportunities that are in front of you.
Right.
So, our story may not be everyone's story, but you might get presented with different opportunities. But man, take that leap.
Looking at the opportunity.
Take that leap. You're not going to get wealthy in real estate by owning one home and sitting on it.
Free and clear.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you'll gain whatever that is, but scale it, take advantage of the equity. The equity is a tool that I feel like is underutilized. Mm-hmm. People don't think about it. They're like, oh, I don't want to give up my 2.7 rate. I just don't want. Think about the money that you could make with the equity if you put that money to work. Yeah, you're giving up a 2.7. Maybe you're going to 7%, but do the numbers work? Can you make more money than 7%? I can't calculate the percentage that Nate and I have made over 9 properties with, over the 8 years that we've been flipping real estate. But I can tell you it is way beyond any interest rate that we would have ever paid.
Right. And so there was another hurdle that we were facing in the city of Austin was, I want to say that they were trying to block us from doing Airbnbs.
Well, yes.
Did you see what KXAN just shared the other day?
Oh, no, I didn't.
I don't have my phone.
Well, so I know that
they got more lenient. I only read the first. I have to read into it a little more, but
So we hold these Airbnb classes that Nate does, and he has looked up recently, like in the last like 2 weeks, what the Airbnb restrictions are of every city in our area: Lago Vista, Cedar Park, Leander, Round Rock, Georgetown, Kyle, Buda. I mean, he thought of every single city that is in our immediate vicinity. But that was one reason we left Austin, is because it was just getting stricter and stricter. You can't short-term rental a single-family home. Is there a new change?
That's what I'm looking for right now. 16 hours ago, Austin Business Journal shared that the federal judge ruled August 2nd that people who own an investment home in Austin but don't live there can rent it out on Airbnb, VRBO, or short-term rental websites. The city of Austin was sued by Houston residents after municipal rules passed in 2016 prohibiting them from renting out their house on Lake Austin on the popular travel websites. Such investments properties had to survive on long-term leases. Those who own homes in Austin and designate their primary residence have been allowed to short-term rent. The city is disappointed with the ruling, but hopes that owners and guests of the term rental properties will be respectful and considerate of the neighbors in which they are located. So I would consider this a win in the real estate market, right?
Whoa. Yeah,
That's
I would
massive.
love the details behind that and see if there's any loopholes, because this could be a game changer for investors in Austin. And the whole reason why we pulled out of Austin is because you can't short-term rental, the restrictions.
And so I feel like this is an opportunity where investors are going to come back active, because for a long time, they were like sharks around our city, right? And they were like, this is not going to work. Round Rock, it's going to work. Okay, Buda, Kyle, no, it's not. There's not as much activity. But now it's like, okay, now they can actually swim in,
Wow.
Yeah. So I feel like
crazy. That's crazy news.
And the fact that they're saying that you don't have to be it doesn't have to be a primary residence. Mm-hmm. This makes me think of all the like prospects, all the times that we went to go look at properties and we didn't make a move because of that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's I think it's a good and bad thing. So I think it's great for investors, fantastic for investors. And it's great for homeowners. It's great for homeowners that would love to make money on the home that they own right now. Maybe this will push them to sell to Airbnb their current home and go buy the home that they want, because they can make a lot of money maybe with the home that they have. The downside to this, and I'm sure why the city has fought this, is because of home buyers. Mm-hmm. They're gonna have more competition, because now home buyers who are looking for owner occupied are going up against investors. Mm-hmm. And also the rental market for people who can't purchase, that's going to be tough for them.
Mm-hmm. So the day-to-day families won't be able to take advantage.
It's going to make it a little bit tougher for day-to-day families in Austin.
Unless it's a generational, like a passed down blessing.
Yeah.
And another part of that makes me wonder how much saturation is going to take place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right.
But I feel like
True.
Nobody's buying in this market. So if you do make a move in this market, this would be the time to do that.
That is so true. That is so true, because I love, and I use your expression almost every single phone call that I have with a borrower about ants on a sidewalk. And you put water on ants on a sidewalk and they're not dead, but they come back when the water's dry. And when the rates go down, everyone's going to come back. The ants, people, they're not gone. The demand is just water. There's water on a sidewalk. Mm-hmm. And once interest rates come down, everyone's going to flood the market again. And so this is such a good time to buy. Yes, interest rates are higher than what we're spoiled with, but buy now, refi later. Get the best of both worlds.
Don't fall in love with the rate.
Yeah, no. Date the rate, marry the house.
Right. And I was going to say, there was one thing that I've been thinking about too, is like, this is something that's been on my heart like for a while, for the last 6 months, is like, before August 2nd, this Airbnb law just passed. I would say that in this market, the true investor is that first-time home buyer that's lived in their house prior to COVID-19. they're the ones that have that equity that they just not reluctantly, they purchased this house, and within 12 months they've gained, 75,000, at least 100,000 in just that one on that house that one time.
Yes.
So I feel like take advantage of the fact that you purchased, those years before COVID took place, the COVID prices hit.
Yeah.
And go get yourself something that you actually deserve.
Yeah. Yeah.
With that this is also an opportunity for first-time home buyers. They're the investors of today's market because they're the ones that can stomach the payments. They're the ones that are going to sit in it, do the time for that cash flow or that equity to gain. Investors don't have time. They're timed by the day that they close. From the day that they close, they want to finish that project.
Right.
So,
and also they've got to make a lot of money on it. Whereas owner-occupied people can handle the payment. They're living there. That's their primary residence. That's their only mortgage payment typically. So they've got a little bit more room.
It's a double-ended benefit for them.
Yeah. And then, when they're done with it, rent it, lease it out, and then move on to the next one. Do a cash out refi before they lease it. And then use that money for the down payment for the next house.
See, these are the things I feel like these ideas, they're mapped out so great when you're talking to a lender, but sometimes not even a real estate agent can come up with these ideas. So I think it's best as a party of three to come together and strategize on that.
Yeah.
Because there's so many things that I've thought of and I didn't call you on. I was just trying to think, make it make sense in my head first, but it probably would have made that decision for me had I called.
Yeah.
What do you know?
I love finding ways for people to scale in real estate because it is such a passion for me because it has blessed my family immensely. And so if I can use that passion in my work to help others do the same thing, that is what would be the most rewarding part about my job. And so I always look at every scenario from an investment standpoint, or, how can I give them the best advice that would make sense for their family? And not everyone wants to be a landlord, and that's fine. But still, even just buying real estate, sitting on it for a few years, you're not only paying down your mortgage, but you're gaining the equity growth, and you can use that money for the next house. So it's great.
That's our goal. Maybe I should tell you a little bit about myself.
Yes, I would love to hear your story, Bianca. What is yours?
So it's interesting how I got into real estate. A good friend of mine, at that time I was working in the retail market, and I was getting off of work at 10 o'clock at night. And I've always thought that having kids are a blessing, but what's the blessing if you can't actually enjoy them and you're working just to have a roof over their head, feed them, let them go to sleep, and the next morning you do it all over again, and they're in daycare 10 hours out of the day, whatever, however long. I felt like a horrible parent. And so for me, I got into real estate to kind of leverage my time a little better, not knowing that I was going to get a full-time. But at least I get to work with my kids right next to me. But anyways, I got into real estate for that, not knowing that it was going to hit me on a much different level on a personal side of what I was doing. Again, working in retail, there's some times where you sell things and you're like, it's not worth it, right? Whatever it is that you're selling, it's you don't even believe in the product. And so I was really, really good at sales only if I believed in the product. Once I discovered the back end side of it, of how it works, or the cost of me selling that product, it would kill my numbers, completely kill my numbers, because I didn't believe in the product at that time. But after getting into real estate and learning the back end of it, or not even learning the back end, just doing what I can for the consumers, the clients that we're helping, the families, there's so much more to that than just the deal itself. It's actually helping that family. That family is, sometimes it could be a Section 8 family, and they're breaking a generational curse of living on government housing. And to me, that's where I feel like it's better than having them sign at closing. It's more to where I could sleep better at night because I know that my job was done, well that day. Or
so satisfying.
Yes, it's so I feel like I haven't realized how much I fell in love with real estate until you see yourself late at night, obsessing about it, learning, learning more and more. So I feel like for me, coming from a family of 8, we moved a lot. A lot of people, probably on my social media platforms, they know me, and more than likely I don't know them. And that's because I didn't want to take the time to learn or to know people growing up. every 12 months, we probably even less than 12 months, there was times where we would, be in Section 8 housing, and the rent would go up, and we'd move from, one side of town, from North Austin to South Austin, or South Austin to East Austin. We were all over the place. So a lot of the faces that I see, they kind of get like meshed to where I can't figure out what school out of the 12 that I went to.
Wow.
Yeah. And mind you, I didn't even finish school. So I didn't finish high school.
Yeah.
So like that's probably in like 9 years of me knowing these, just a lot of faces. But what I do know is that these faces are coming back when I see them in real estate. And these are families that I'm helping. And to know that I'm making an impact on them, like getting them settled in, because I don't know their story. Some of them, I don't know their story until we get to closing, or, in the process.
You learn it through talking
But
to
I
them.
learn it. And that's where it tells me, like, keep showing up, because there's other families just like yours that were tired of moving around, They're tired of, telling their kids, like, hey, this is in 3 months, we have our 90-day leases up. So kind of get ready to either tell your friends bye or start cold shouldering them, which I think kind of sucks for kids. So I feel like the importance for me is back to the kids that get to have that stable
environment. Yeah, that stable home.
And it affects them education-wise too, right? If you're moving from one district to the next, what I learned is like one can be, you can be learning long division in one school, one district, and then you go to another district and they're teaching you, I don't know, let's say decimals or whatever the case may be. That throws off the kid a whole year, just that 30-day move that you just did.
Right.
So more than likely that kid is probably going to end up failing just because they couldn't ask for help. They were too shy, and there was no point, right? If they're going to end up moving anyways again. So I feel like there's a lot more than you just buying that house.
Yeah.
That house is financial stability. It's keeping a man and a woman or a couple together, to actually raise a family together, and that kid having a balance, right? At work, home, and school, or whatever. It teaches them as a person too, of, consistency in their jobs.
So valuable. So what's your story as far as real estate goes? Like what got you from retail into real estate? Like what was who pulled you in, or what made that change? I mean, I know it was your kids, right? But why real estate?
The class was on sale.
Okay.
It was like a $400 class.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe that was a God thing. There are some things that can't be explained, right? I believe that God put that on my heart, was like, something has got to change. Like, if you really want to be there for your kids, something has to change. So it put a fire in my tail to where I was like, I want to be there. I don't want to be that parent. Dad was in oil fields. So Dad was gone 2 weeks out of the month. So when he was there, I had things to do. We did family things, right? It was kind of like we were on vacation. Not really, because again, I was getting off at 10 o'clock at night, but still, I had help for 2 weeks. I only had 2 weeks at a time.
Wow. And
so I felt like a single parent for those 2 weeks that he was gone. So I was just like, this is ridiculous. Like, we make good money, but for what? Like we don't even go on vacations. We don't reap the benefits of what we're actually doing. I'm not happy with where I'm at. He's not happy where he's at. Later to discover, I'm probably speeding up the story, but let me hold off on that part. So oil fields, he wasn't happy. He would come back tired, like exhausted. I would see his body wore, and like his son, his tan lines on his eyes, it didn't look like he was on vacation. Like, those were not vacation tan lines. So I just felt like our time was limited. We just needed to make best use of our time. And so after we had our second child, because my first son we met when he was 2. So after we had our first child together, we would say our second, I had 6 weeks to figure out what I was going to do. 6 weeks of a break, 6 weeks to think about how my life is going. Am I happy with it? You love a lot of, I feel like a mother, when you're on your 6 week break, a lot of us start to tend to think about what we're really doing with ourselves, right? With our lives. And so those 6 weeks I enrolled into real estate.
Wow.
And real estate school, and I killed it fast. Like,
that's amazing.
As much as I could. And I went back to school. We went back to work January 2nd or something like that, 3rd. Donald Trump had gave us like I guess like the retail industry, or I guess it was like corporate companies. He gave them $1,000 bonus.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I didn't
so
know
that $1,000 bonus that they gave every employee that was in the corporate, I used that money to get my butt out of. I quit like as soon as I got that check. I quit because I was like, I'm gonna gamble on this money and use it to benefit myself. So I went, took my class. I passed my classes within those, like I think like 2 weeks after getting back to work. So as soon as that check came in from Donald Trump, I quit. And so I have no clue how we made it from there.
Wow.
But I do know that I joined a real estate team. She taught me the basics. She was very, very hard on me. And I didn't understand why. It was kind of like, I thought she was like a harsh person, but she did it out of love. Like now looking back at it, I still to this day learn so many lessons from her on, like don't trust people or, whatever she was thinking. And I was like, man, she really doesn't believe in like
she must
the
have been
goodness
in
of
real
people.
estate for a while.
She was 4 years, but she was a producer. Like she was a huge producer. She had a talent of herself, but she had her own story. But I know that she learned the lessons that she learned. She didn't like take, for granted. And she definitely shared those nuggets with me.
Yeah.
And so for me to pick that up from her, I was green. I had a green heart, everything was green about me. So when I seen that in her, I was like, quit. Like I quit the team and I was like, that's not how I'm going to do my business. But later over the years, there's things that she would chant in my head. And I was just like, that's ugly. That's the ugliest way to think. And then I thought about it and I'm like, she got screwed over this way.
Yeah.
This is why.
Yeah.
This is why. There is people that are like that, so I understand where she's coming from, but also she taught me things on how to cover my tail, and get sharper at, the people that not the people that you're dealing with, but the people you're going to encounter. Right. And so anyways, after I quit the team, I was doing pretty good by myself. My husband got cancer during COVID, right before the shutdown, March.
Oh, wow.
I think it was like February or March. He was complaining about his stomach, and we took him he went to the local ER in the oil fields. And to me, I felt like that was God telling me again, it's time. Like you're doing so well. You're going to need to float. You're going to need to hold the ship for a little bit. And I was scared, but also I didn't want to lose my life partner. Cause like, I felt like our life like kind of flashed before us. Like what would I do with 2 kids by myself? Yeah. And the husband my boyfriend at the time that was making 6 figures, the 6 figures, they can get replaced but the partner, there's someone I can cry on that, I can lean on is right there that I can lose. Yeah. And so for me, I felt like it was another opportunity for me to light it up and speed it up my process. So same scenario that took place with me getting my real estate license on those 6 weeks. I had the same opportunity with him because at that time when COVID-19, when he got cancer, they put him on a 6-week leave. They removed the cancer, tested it out. He didn't have cancer. He was in remission, I'm guessing. This is what they said. And then after that, COVID started spreading, maybe days after in the hospital. And so he kind of like, his butt skimmed it, right? Wow. When that took place. And then after that, the oil industry, it crashed. The oil industry crashed. So barrels were once $250, I think, or $500 or $1,000. I don't know. I don't know too much of how those numbers work. But the price of a barrel went from like $500, $250 to $50. And so they bumped him back from a lead supervisor in the oil fields, all the way back to a helping hand. Oh, wow. Cut his commission or cut his checks in half. Wow. He went from making probably like $50 an hour to $20. And that was not going to cut it for us. Right. Not only that, but the cancer thing, right? Yeah. He was actually doing labor. He went from looking at computer screens to doing, it was called a Derrickman. Oh, wow. And so they're like, I guess collapsing these machines together with their core. He just had surgery on his stomach. 6 weeks is not, I had my appendix removed, and I know that it took me probably like 3 or 4 months to recover from that. So for him to go and do labor on his core, I was like, this dude, like you're not a spring chicken anymore. It's time. And he's like, well, what do you want me to do? I was like, I don't know. Like, you just need to quit and come home. And so we utilized that time for him to find God, because he would wait outside the church, like for me. Like when church was done, he was like, waiting in the car, like, are we done yet, kind of thing.
Oh, wow.
And fast forward now, we're both actively serving in the church. Like, we don't miss a Sunday, we don't miss a Wednesday. And he encountered God in that hospital bed. Our church came. They didn't even know who he was. Like, they didn't know who he was. They seen on Facebook that he was going through that. They had some members of the church go and pray over him. And I feel like those were his guardian angels to set him up to who he is now. And now he's taking his real estate courses for being a home inspector, and I'm doing pretty well in real estate.
It's amazing, Bianca. What a God story that is. That's amazing.
So I feel like you have to drop the things that the things that we're used to. Sometimes I feel like God calls us and he's like, this is it. Change, shift. That 1 degree turn that you make on the ship can change your whole life. Right. It can change the whole destination of where you're going.
Yeah. Follow the opportunities that are in front of you. Take advantage of the gifts that you're given. And you have done that with your life. And now you're at home. You make your own schedule. You can.
Both parents are there.
Yes. That's
making the same money.
Yeah. That's amazing. What a beautiful story that is.
Thank you. It's crazy to sit back and look at it. It makes me want to tear up, honestly.
Yeah, no, I am tearing up. I'm trying to like control it because we're on camera, but oh my gosh, if I wasn't, I would be bawling right now.
Yeah.
I think the last conversation we had, some not the last, but like sometime last year, you made me cry.
Yeah.
And you were telling me your sweet love story, and you were about to get married to him.
Yeah.
And that was I cried at that.
In a week. We planned it in a week.
Yeah.
It's like, I feel like all the time, like when you have like the Holy Spirit, like in your ear, it's so loud that if you trust those decisions and you make those decisions, you won't regret them. And you'll look back and you're like, aha moments come,
Yeah, that's beautiful. Awesome. Well, so let's talk about investment. Back to like investment properties. So I have a few questions for you. Do you have a specialty when you are serving clients, or is it just one size fits all? You do everything, or is there a niche that you have in real estate?
Right. So I feel like naturally the niche comes to you. You don't get to pick it.
Right. True.
So for me, the niche that has attracted to me was first time home. For one, it was like a double, double benefit, right? I'm helping a first generation, first family purchase their very first home that later become investors. So that's where the investor side comes out. So I'm very, very savvy when it comes to investors and like finding them the opportunity for cash flow. At the same time, I'm really, really skilled, highly skilled with first time home buyers that sometimes happen to not have that perfect credit score.
Right. Finding opportunities also with maybe limited assets.
Right.
Getting into a house with very little, if any, money down, right?
We make it work.
Yes. Yeah. So when you're looking at with your investor clients, is there something that you recommend for them to be looking for, or that you look for with them, that would make a good rental property? So like, certain amount of bedrooms or bathrooms or amenities like pools or things like that. Like what makes a good investment property?
For me, one of the main things that I look at is the actual plan itself. In the Austin market, unfortunately, it's a little costly. So sometimes there's going to be multiple families living in one property. Yep. So I try to look at the bedroom size ratio, the bedroom to restroom ratio. I like the idea of a 1-story. Some people don't, right? Some people prefer, it's off preference on that part, on the 2-story. But I also look at the job markets nearby. That's something that I really like to focus on, is who is that feeding into? What market is that feeding into? Is it Samsung? Is it a Tesla plant? Is it, customers, like a call center? I try to figure out in what range will it attract, what kind of lifestyle is held around there. And I kind of try to paint the picture around that house. And also vicinity to the airport. I love the idea of something being close to the airport.
Yeah.
For one, because I'm tired of what is it? Ubers. Those are super expensive. So I feel like anybody that's gonna like travel, or if it's an Airbnb, they want to be close to. For one, if it's an Airbnb, they try to be close to travel or high activity areas, right? City of Austin with all their festivals and things like that we have. But also on the other end is I think of, it slipped my mind. Oh no,
that's okay.
I lost it.
So you like them being close to the airport,
right? But that's just me. But that's because I know that area and I know it's a growing area.
Well, it's a popular area because people fly in and family and.
I know some things that some people don't know about, like some of the, the air growths. I love to keep up with, because I grew up here.
Yeah.
I know the dirt.
Uh-huh.
And I know all the 401 about who's developing where.
Okay.
And so in Del Valle, for me, my favorite thing that I like to tell to an investor, because they don't see the opportunity, they don't see the growth in what they're doing to the community itself. But I see. I'll tell them a link. I'm like, hey, look this up. This is what's projected to happen in this area. So
that's awesome.
If you can hold it for 10 years or 5 years until this project is open, you're going to get a benefit as if you were purchasing in the west side of Austin. And what you did is you found something before anybody else did. You're going to renovate it, make it nice, make it up to date. And by then that project should be done. And you have the benefit of Tesla. The other opportunity is Velocity ATX. If you Google that, that's like a domain that's happening in Del Valle, which is, I can't wait. I almost bought a 1,400 square foot house for my family of 5 to fit in. And that wasn't going to work. But I'm still sick to my stomach that I didn't make. You were with me on that decision and I pulled back on it. I was so scared. Yeah. But I still, to this day, I scratch my head on that one.
Other opportunities will present itself at the right time, but that's good to know about that area near the airport.
And I think that's important too. Is if you're not an investor from the get-go, from the start, if you're a first-time home buyer family, or if you're a first-time home buyer family that has plans on becoming an investor, don't fall too much in love with the growth. Don't fall too much in love with the house itself. Make yourself uncomfortable, right? Like. If I'm not saying that you pile up in a house, but I'm saying that take some, if it's a electric range and you're a gas cooker kind of person, let that be the thing that puts a fire in your butt to make you move out, and rent it out, or you do your Airbnb, whatever your plans are. There's some things that I feel like in some parts of our lives, like we always have to be uncomfortable. Yeah. And it's not like it's something like uncomfortable, like door knocking or making a cold call uncomfortable. I'm talking about uncomfortable where you're like, I can't wait to get out of this. Yes. I cannot wait to get the house that we deserve. I cannot wait to rent this out and have our first rental property, Yeah. So that's awesome. For me, I always try and talk my clients into being uncomfortable. It cannot be perfect. I wouldn't want to be perfect, because if it is, you're going to stay there for a really long time and you're going to miss out on a lot of opportunity that are going to come up in the midst of that time. Yep.
Man, good stuff. So one last question, because I know we're talking so long, which is great. And I love our conversation. If you could read the room for real estate investors right now, in today's market, what would you tell them? What would your best advice be in today's market for real estate investors?
I think get more strategic on your plans. Look at it from best case and worst case scenario. Yeah. And just hope for the best and expect the worst, just because I feel like an investor in this market has to have more money than an average investor. Like, it's the average investor has to at least have, like you said, like maybe 150, 200,000 to do some of the projects. Or you do have to put down like 50% to cash flow around here in this market. Wow. So I would say just get more savvy on your options.
Find opportunities, find financing options that might get you in the door on some, right?
Right. Yeah. And if you are an investor, look at the opportunity of, long term, if you can hold off to first quarter next year, what kind of projects can you take your time on that's not too much of a constraint financially on you?
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. So Nate, you looked up what Bianca said about the judge ruling, and
a judge ruled it unconstitutional.
That's amazing. So a judge ruled it unconstitutional for a homeowner to not be able to put their home on Airbnb and not owner occupied an investment property.
That's their investment.
It's in their investment.
Tell them what they can't do. So I think that's amazing news.
What's even more mind-blowing is that Dallas just ruled that you cannot have any Airbnbs in the area. And Austin...
What does that mean for Austin?
What does that mean? I guess I would say if a judge ruled it unconstitutional for Austin, I would think that the city of Dallas is about to get a lawsuit as well.
But in the meantime, there's going to be a flow of investors, overflow.
Yes.
Because that was the thing is a lot of people try to balance. Mm-hmm. Austin is just as much as tech as Dallas.
Yeah.
And a lot of the tech industries, I don't know why, but they love numbers, right? The tech industry loves numbers.
Yeah.
So those are usually our investors, right? So a lot of them are they've always tried to decide between the two. Mm-hmm. This is going to kind of tip the scale.
Yeah.
Huge.
Wow. That is... With our Airbnb story, I just can't tell you what an incredible opportunity that is for people who are wanting to get into Airbnb.
I think you should share the debate of what you guys were thinking on your property.
What were we thinking? Oh, so we're under contract for a flip house right now, which I haven't shared with anyone but Bianca.
And now
the
Sorry,
world.
Guys.
We have to make sure the numbers make sense on it. There's a lot of work that has to be done to this specific property. So we're kind of in that initial phase. But our fear was that, okay, if we get this flip house that we're hoping to flip in 6 months, if we can't sell it or sell it for the price that we need to sell it for because of the work that needs to go into it, then we're stuck with it because we can't Airbnb it until you blew my mind today.
But if you think about it, your situation is every investor's situation right now. So it's like your story is no different from any investor. So
what a peace of mind that brings an investor.
Yes.
To be like, okay, well, if I can't sell it, then, or you know what, rates are high right now. Maybe rates next year will be easier. Maybe next year will be the time to sell. And therefore I could Airbnb my house out in the meantime. Mm-hmm. Or maybe I'm making so much money on Airbnb on this house that I don't want to sell it. So that it opens doors to so many different opportunities, which is just so exciting.
Yep.
And the timing of it for our family is like creepy. Like we just executed this morning at 8 a.m. and it's like 11 a.m. and Bianca is blowing my mind on this judge ruling. So,
but do you know what's crazy about that is if you would have closed this, if you would have executed 4 days later, there would have been more options on the table. Offers.
You might be right. Yeah. That's a great.
So you probably did the same thing as my husband at that time when things changed.
Yeah.
The elevator closed right behind your tail and you're on your way up. That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So you have investors or listings or clients that might have some questions.
Right. So this is my question to you, Kristi.
Okay.
And I think I'm speaking on behalf of a lot of homeowners that have lived in Austin their whole life. They own the home free and clear, or they're halfway done, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of them have these homes that some of them may have central AC, some of them may not. Now, in this market, I don't truly think it's ideal to do a new construction, like a tear down and remodel, like do a whole new, new site.
Sure.
What I'm thinking is, what options does that homeowner have that wants to sell their property, but it's not up to par of what's on the market, and they're financially tied down?
Okay.
What can they do with the equity that they have on that property to bring this house up to date and let it compete with the listings? Because we have 4 months of inventory.
Yeah.
You have to stand out in this market.
Yeah. So there's a few loans. There's renovation loans. Those loans can be pricey. If they have enough equity, they could do a cash out refinance. Let's say they close on the cash out refinance. It's going to take them a few months to renovate, maybe a couple more months to sell. So they might be hanging on to that loan for maybe 6 to 8 months. And so if they're giving up a 3% or a 4% interest rate, but that's what they need to do in order to sell their house, they're only hanging on to that higher rate for 6 months, 8 months. So cash out refis are an option. The other thing is a home equity line of credit or a second mortgage, home equity loan. Line of credit is something that's revolving, so you only pay interest on what you borrow. A home equity loan is just a straightforward loan. And you can use the equity in your home. And if it is your primary residence, you can borrow up to 80% of that home value. So to use simple numbers that are not realistic in our market, but to make it easy to understand, if you have a home that's valued at $100,000, you can borrow up to $80,000. So if you have a first mortgage on it for $50,000, then that gives you $30,000 that you can borrow against your home. So if it's a primary residence, you can borrow a total of 80% of your home value. So find out what your home value would be like, and then calculate 80% of that. 75% if you're not living there and it's an investment property, and then minus your whatever you currently owe on it, mortgage, or if you don't owe anything on it, then you can borrow up to 75 to 80% of that value.
That's awesome.
That's a great tool, because that way you're not giving up the rate on your first mortgage, and you can keep that the same, and then you can just get a second mortgage behind it.
Perfect. And I know, like you said, it really doesn't. Well, yeah, that really doesn't matter either, because you're planning on selling that property, or or
maybe you are going to sell it and you do the renovations and end up keeping the home for a little bit longer because the rental market, is great for an updated house. Maybe not super updated, but updated. And then you could take some of that equity and use it for the down payment on the next home. So you don't maybe necessarily have to sell it. If you've got a good amount of equity that you can update the house and use some of that for the down payment for the next house, use that as a tool. And that is a great way to get your start in owning rental properties.
It's awesome. So this is another question. Why should they sell now? Because next year,
if rates drop next year, I think that I don't think that we're going to see the returns that we saw, the drastic returns that we saw in 2020, 2021, 2022. But I do still think that the demand is going to push home values up. So using this time to fix up the home and getting it ready, if they, like you said earlier, if they could just, do some renovations now, or, do what they can to the house now, get it ready, spend your time getting the house ready to put on the market for when things start to shift.
And if you think about it this way, two things. If you think about it this way, no matter what, if you're worried about what's going to happen next year and you already have a property and you're debating on selling and buying,
yes,
either way, it's going to happen to either property.
Right, exactly.
Whether the prices go up or
right,
it goes down or whatever, like you have that you're going to be in a property.
Well, I think what you might be able to do to take advantage of both is to get the home equity line of credit, use that money to fix up the property, use that money to buy another house now, buy where you're going now, maybe rent that other house out for a year or two and then sell it. And then you're taking advantage of both ends.
That's what I was going to say and during the COVID, the whole everything going on with the rates and stuff, people were doing that. They were riding the wave of the pricing going up on their house, on the new construction home, because they locked in that price, right? Or the house that they were, renovating or purchasing, whatever. They were kind of like, it's almost like two ships passing, and you hit that perfect time to jump from one ship to the next. You had your feet in both at one point.
And you may not always be able to time real estate perfectly, but I think this is a good strategy to be able to take advantage of both markets and have one foot in each market.
This is where the ships are meeting.
Yeah, I think this is it's a prime opportunity time.
Right. So I think that was one of my key questions I felt like asking you was what can they do with the money that they have? Yeah. Not in hand, but over the roof.
There's so many tools. There's so many tools. You just need to speak with people that are knowledgeable in what those tools are. And share your story with your realtor, your lender, and see what tools they recommend, what tools that they have in their toolbox. And I'm partial to brokers because now I'm a mortgage broker. I have way more tools to play with that fit a lot more people's scenarios.
You have your hands in a whole bunch of different toolboxes.
I have 161 different lenders, and each of those lenders have several different loan types.
Yeah.
So the possibilities are just almost endless.
I think so. One thing that we need to make clear is you make sure that you share with your real estate agent and your lender your plans clear as day, so we can make sure that everything is lining up to where you want to go or what you're planning on doing. So in your situation, Kristi, with you doing that flip, you have all your options laid out and you know what they are.
Yes.
So there's no surprises.
Yeah. Well, hopefully there will be no surprises.
No surprises. But if there is, you have all those options.
Yeah.
Yeah. You already knew.
You have contingency plans. Yeah. You have a plan B and a plan C.
Z.
Yeah.
All the way to Z.
Yeah. Options. Options are key.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, Bianca, thank you so much for coming today and chatting with me. And it was great to hear your story. It was amazing. Guys, if you are interested in investing, Bianca is a great resource. I've worked with her on several deals, and she's a fantastic realtor, knows her stuff. Reach out to her. We'll put her information at the end of this clip. Thank you again, Bianca.
You.
Have a good day.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.